Before we begin, listen closely, child of the waking dawn. Subscribe to this channel right now and do not look away, for what you are about to hear has been sealed in the vaults of the seventh heaven for millennia, and only those who watch this message until the final breath of the final word shall receive the shield of clarity that guards the spirit from the storms of unseen realms. For I, the Archangel Michael, the guardian of thresholds and the commander of celestial flame, speak to you now. Across the trembling fabric of the mortal plane, not as a myth, not as a whisper of ancient scripture, but as a voice that rises like a blazing sword through the darkness that circles your fate tonight, and as I speak, let the weight of my warning fall upon your heart with the gravity of 1,000 forgotten stars, for this night is not like others you have passed through unknowing. This night coils with a silence that listens, breathes, and waits for what your hands and your courage will choose, and you must listen to me, for the hours between now and midnight shrink like burning paper, and with every passing second the unseen tides rearrange themselves around your name, preparing to test the strength of your intention, for even though this message is but a fictional weaving of narrative meant to stir your imagination, let your mind feel its world as vividly as the air around you, for though the danger is not real, the intensity with which you experience it will bind you to the pulse of the story, and this pulse is what I, Michael, carry from the higher halls where echoes of forgotten battles drift like smoke through marble corridors, battles fought to protect the fragile minds and trembling hopes of souls like you, who walk beneath the great veil of uncertainty seeking a sign, a whisper, a direction, and so I come to you now not as savior nor judge, but as the guardian who stands between your fear and your awakening, telling you that before the cold line of this midnight arrives you must perform 3 sacred acts of the imagination that shall shape the outcome of the shadows gathering at the edge of this tale, for the story demands that you engage, that you step forward, that you refuse the paralysis that waits like a serpent coiled around doubt, for the first act you must perform is acceptance, not acceptance of doom, not acceptance of warning, but acceptance of your own power, for in this fictional world where my voice weaves itself into your pulse, your acceptance becomes a flame, and with that flame you push back against the storm that rattles the gates of this night, and as I speak you feel it, the tremor behind your ribs, the quiet surge through your breath, the sudden recognition that you are not a passive observer but a participant, a wielder of intention inside this narrative, and as the heavens arch above the dome of this moment, your acceptance becomes a beacon seen even in the farthest corners of this imaginary realm, radiating through the silver towers and the amethyst horizons where celestial sentinels turn their faces toward you, recognizing that you have stepped into the current of this tale, and as they watch, I extend my sword toward the path ahead, commanding you to perform the second act, the act of release, not physical release, not emotional release bound to your real life, but a symbolic release within the realm of this story, where you imagine letting go of the chains forged by the unseen adversary in this narrative, the adversary who moves like a shadow stitched into the wind, who seeks to weave illusions around your spirit to convince you that you are powerless, but tonight, before midnight strikes its silver edge across the fictional heavens, you must envision those chains shattering like glass beneath the strike of celestial fire, for only then does the pathway open, the pathway where starlight spills like molten gold across the forgotten plains, revealing the third act you must complete. Declaration, a declaration spoken not aloud but within the silent corridors of your own imagination, where you proclaim that within the world of this unfolding story you are unshaken, unbroken, unclaimed by the shadows that gather to test your resolve, for as soon as you speak this declaration in your mind, the sky above this imagined realm ignites with cataclysmic brilliance, as if the constellations themselves have awakened from slumber, and the cosmic armies of fiction, bound to my command, descend in spiraling formations of sapphire fire, their wings cutting through the darkness like thunder-carved blades, and I, standing at the burning heart of this celestial convergence, raise my sword toward you, not in threat, not in judgment, but in recognition of the unwavering courage you bring into this crafted world of imagination, and as the energy ripples outward in radiant waves, The shadows at the far edge of the horizon recoil, withdrawing into the silent fractures between realms. Unable to withstand the force of the narrative that you have now claimed, for your participation is the shield, your imaginary defiance is the barrier, your engagement is the light by which this story survives, and now, with the ticking of the unseen fictional clock racing toward midnight, understand that there is a deeper layer to this warning, not a danger to you, not a prophecy, but a test of immersion, a call to step fully into the tale, for if you drift away, if you let your mind slip into distraction, the vibrancy of this world collapses into dust, but if you remain with me, if you allow the story's pulse to sync with your breath, then the forces in this imagined realm weave themselves into a crescendo that circles your essence with the brilliance of a rising celestial dawn, and as the hours thin and the final arc of this fictional night bends closer to the 0 point, I tell you this: you are not here by accident. For stories choose their listeners just as listeners choose their stories, and this one has chosen you, drawn you into its labyrinth of fire and shadow, and as my voice continues to flow across the infinite tapestry of this narrative plane, you feel the trembling of the earth beneath your fictional feet, the surge of cosmic energy rising like a storm, the roar of celestial battalions forming behind me as I prepare to lead them into the final confrontation that will unfold the moment the midnight bell strikes in this imagined universe, and you know, deep, certain, undeniable, that the tale moves because you witness it, the flame burns because you fuel it, the realms expand because your attention breathes life into their borders, and so I command you, with the authority of a guardian forged from starlight and ancient fire, remain steadfast, remain present, remain unshaken, for when the final second before midnight arrives in this fictional world, the heavens will part, the shadows will converge, the battlefield will awaken, and the story will hinge on whether you continue to stand in this moment with unwavering focus, and so I say to you now, child of the awakening storm, subscribe, hold your gaze steady, let your spirit blaze through the corridors of imagination, and prepare yourself for the moment when the last breath of this message merges with the first strike of the celestial war that awaits at the midnight edge of this tale, for this is your warning, this is your call, this is your summoning into the fire-lit heart of a world that exists only through your willingness to believe in the impossible, and now the hour draws near, and I, Archangel Michael, stand ready, in fiction, in light, in unbound narrative fury, for what comes next. And now, as the aftershocks of the first warning echo through the celestial corridors of this imagined realm, hear me again, for I, Archangel Michael, return to you with the full force of the renewed storm gathering beyond the burning horizon, and I speak not as a whisper carried by trembling winds, but as a thunderstrike forged by the will of the heavens you have chosen to walk beside, and though this tale remains fiction, though its shadows exist only in the world shaped by your imagination, the weight of what unfolds next presses against the invisible fabric of this narrative like a creature clawing its way out of silence, hungry for resolution, for the battlefield that was once quiet now trembles with the pulse of awakening forces, ancient as the first fracture of light that ever pierced the eternal void, and as the hour of fictional midnight draws closer, the realm around you shifts, breaths, and reshapes itself in response to your presence, for stories such as this never stand still when their chosen listener remains, watching, absorbing, engaging, and it is your attention, your unwavering anchor, that keeps this universe from collapsing into scattered cinders, and so I speak again, with fire woven into every syllable, telling you that the first wave of the shadow tide has risen, their forms stretching like black smoke across the blood-red skyline, eyes burning with the pale glow of forgotten curses, and as they march toward the celestial gates, the armies behind me stir, wings stretching like continents of living light, armor shimmering with the reflections of shattered galaxies, and though this is but a crafted world of story and nothing here can touch your reality, the intensity of this moment surges through the air like a blade devouring darkness, demanding you witness the unfolding ascent, for you have already taken the 3 steps required in Part 1, and your acceptance, release, and declaration have altered the balance of power within this tale more than you yet understand, for your imaginary flame, once small, has grown into something the shadows fear, something they recoil from, something they whisper about as they gather in their silent enclaves, plotting to extinguish your presence from this world of narrative before the final chime of midnight strikes. But they cannot succeed if you remain here, if you continue to listen, if you allow this story to live through your breath. For your participation now binds you to the core of the unfolding storm, and as I stand at the spear point of the heavenly host, I feel the shift, a tremor so immense it rattles the crystal foundations of the silver citadel far above, where ancient watchers peer through the veils of time, marking every movement in this war that exists only in the mind yet feels as vast as creation itself, and in the deep distance, beyond the horizon where the final battle soon will erupt, the abyss begins to split, a colossal crack unfurling across the sky like a wound-leaking darkness, and from it emerges the harbinger of the nightfall tide, a towering phantom forged from the first shadow ever born in this realm, its presence dragging silence behind it like a chain made of collapsed suns. And it is for this creature, this adversary woven entirely from imagination and narrative menace, that I have summoned you into the heart of Part 2, for the harbinger senses you now, feels the echo of your flame, tastes the defiance you breathed into the air of this world in the final moment of Part 1, and its gaze, hollow and vast, sweeps across the realm in search of you, not to harm you, for this remains only a constructed tale, but to lock your presence into the unfolding war, for without you, this fictional universe destabilizes, cracks, collapses into silent dust. And so understand this: your role is not passive, your witness is not accidental. Your focus fuels the very light that allows me to stand between the legions of shadow and the final threshold, and with every heartbeat you give to this moment, my sword burns brighter, my wings widen, my resolve deepens, and the armies behind me roar with renewed fire, their voices shaking the mountains of crystal flame that rise on either side of this warpath. And now, as the harbinger steps fully into the light, its form rippling like liquid darkness, the winds begin to scream, the sky begins to fracture, and the ground beneath us vibrates with the coming clash, and I turn toward you through the veil of this tale and command you once more: do not look away, do not falter, do not let your attention waver even for a single breath, for the stability of this world is woven into the thread of your focus, and if you remain steady, if you continue to anchor yourself inside this narrative, then together we will push deeper into the storm, carving open the path that leads to the next revelation, the next confrontation, the next surge of celestial fury waiting at the edge of midnight. For Part 2 is not the climax, it is the awakening before the firestorm, the inhale before the scream of battle, the moment before the universe of this fiction erupts into war. And as the harbinger raises its colossal arm and points toward you, acknowledging your presence, acknowledging your defiance, acknowledging your refusal to vanish from this world, I raise my burning sword in answer, letting its blaze rip across the sky like a comet splitting the darkness, and I whisper through the roar of gathering forces: prepare yourself, child of the rising storm, for Part 3 awaits, and the fire there will be unlike anything you have yet witnessed. And now the moment you have been unconsciously marching toward since the first echo of my warning is upon us, for as the harbinger of the nightfall tide fixes its abyssal gaze upon you across the trembling expanse of this imagined realm, a silence unlike any that has ever existed falls over the battlefield, a silence so deep it seems to strip color from the air, halting even the celestial winds that once howled like ancient wolves across the storm-forged plains. And in this impossible stillness, I, Archangel Michael, feel the entire weight of this fictional universe hinge on the single thread of your continued presence, for you have crossed too far into this story to step back now, and the armies behind me, hosts of blazing wings, battalions of golden armor, legions carved from pure starlight, stand frozen in anticipation, watching as the air ripples between you and the creature born from the first shadow ever whispered into the bones of this tale. And though none of this exists outside The world we weave together in this moment, the intensity of it surges through your senses like molten electricity, pulling you deeper, deeper, deeper into the roaring heart of the narrative until every breath you take becomes part of the rhythm of the realm. And now, as the harbinger raises its arm, darkness spilling from its fingertips like liquid night, a crack opens in the sky above us, stretching from one edge of the horizon to the other, jagged, violent, trembling with the birth of something catastrophic, something ancient, something that even the celestial armies behind me cannot identify, and I turn my gaze toward that splitting heaven as a low, thunderous vibration rolls across the plains, rattling the foundations of the silver citadel far above, shaking the crystal mountains that surround us like walls of frozen fire, for something is stepping through the fracture, something older than shadow, older than light, older than the fictional world itself. And even though this is only a tale forged for your imagination, the presence emerging now radiates a magnitude the story has never held before, and I feel its approach like a tidal wave pressing against the edges of creation, bending the very narrative we stand upon, distorting the air, warping the starlight, and as the crack widens, I sense the fearless loyalty of the celestial armies falter, their wings trembling, their armor dimming. For they do not know this force, and in a realm built from the fire of imagination, the unknown grows monstrous, limitless, unbound, and the harbinger itself, silent, cold, unshaken until this very moment, lowers its arm, its faceless void turning toward the widening rift as if recognizing a power greater than its own ancient darkness, and for the first time since our tale began, the creature takes a step back, its shadow rippling with unease. And I speak to you through the trembling air with a voice sharpened by the weight of what is coming. Do not break focus, do not blink, do not allow fear to carve weakness into this world, for everything now rests on the chain that binds your attention to this unfolding moment, and as the rift tears open fully, releasing a blinding surge of inverted light, light that burns like night and glows like darkness, a colossal silhouette descends, wings stretching wider than continents, eyes glowing like the cores of dying stars, and I recognize it instantly. Though every part of this fiction wishes to turn away, it is the eclipse seraph, the forgotten celestial giant cast out of the imaginary heavens long before this story began, a being who absorbs light, devours shadow, and bends entire realms into silence. And though this creature is born only from the ink of narrative imagination, its presence crashes upon us like 1,000 storms driving themselves into the same point in time, and as it lands upon the cracked earth, the ground beneath us fractures outward in a spiderweb of shimmering fault lines, each line pulsing with impossible energy, and the harbinger, once the greatest threat in this realm, now looks small beside the eclipse seraph's titanic form, insignificant, almost fearful, and this shift breaks the balance of power so violently that the armies behind me instinctively step forward, raising their blazing weapons toward the sky, their war cries shaking the heavens as they prepare for a battle none of them were forged to fight. But I lift my sword, stopping them, for I know this truth woven into the marrow of the narrative: this is not a war they can win, not a conflict they can survive, not a force they can withstand. For the eclipse seraph has come for you, not to harm you, not to claim you, for this is only a story, but to test whether your presence still shapes this realm, whether your gaze still binds this world together, whether your spirit still stands unbroken inside the inferno of creation. And as the seraph lowers its head, its eyes locking onto yours with the full weight of a collapsing cosmos, the sky above us bleeds into swirling patterns of shadowed gold and burning violet, and the wind becomes a howl that carries the voices of 1,000 forgotten stories, and I step between you and the seraph, my wings flaring outward with explosive light, shielding you from the full magnitude of its power, and I shout through the hurricane of energy now ripping across the battlefield: stand firm, child of the rising flame, for the story is not done with you, the war is not done with you, I am not done with you, and the moment you falter, the moment your focus fractures, this world collapses into dust and the tale ends unfinished, unfulfilled, unresolved, but if you continue, if you remain exactly where you are, unshaken, unbroken, then part 4 awaits you beyond the edge of this rising storm, and in that moment, the universe itself will change. And now the storm that has been gathering since the first tremor of this tale finally rips itself open as the eclipse seraph, colossal and ancient beyond all memory of this fictional universe, lowers its burning gaze upon you, filling the trembling air with an energy so dense it bends the sky like molten glass, and the very moment its shadow stretches across the cracked plains, the celestial armies behind me buckle beneath its impossible weight, their wings flickering, their armor trembling like candle flames before a cosmic gale. And though this realm is born only from imagination, the magnitude of the force descending upon it now feels like the collapse of entire constellations compressed into a single breath, and I, Archangel Michael, standing between you and this towering silhouette carved from the forgotten bones of celestial exile, feel the fabric of the fictional heaven straining, twisting, fraying as the seraph's presence deepens the fracture above, widening it into a spiraling maelstrom of inverted starlight, drawing in fragments of narrative worlds that were never written, never spoken, never conceived, and the air begins to vibrate with the whispers of erased timelines and impossible futures, as if the universe itself is remembering every version of itself that never came to be, and all of them are turning their unseen eyes toward you, measuring whether your focus remains steady within the inferno unfolding around you, for you must understand this, the eclipse seraph does not descend for glory, nor vengeance, nor conquest, but for confirmation, confirmation that you, yes, you, remain the axis of this tale, the anchor, the listener whose presence stitches reality together in this realm of fiction, and as the seraph's wings unfold further, stretching wider than the horizon, the sky shatters into a mosaic of swirling galaxies, each one spinning at impossible speed, each one distorting the flow of time until seconds stretch like eternities and eternities collapse into single heartbeats, and within this impossible storm, I raise my sword, its blade igniting with a roar that shakes the bones of the earth, and I shout your name, not a name spoken aloud in your world, but the name this narrative has carved into your essence, the name the story recognizes as the keeper of its flame, and the seraph pauses, its titanic form tilting, its abyssal eyes narrowing as if seeing you anew, as if realizing that despite the chaos, despite the collapse of the fictional heavens, despite the storm swallowing the edges of this universe, you have not looked away, you have not abandoned the realm, and the realization ripples outward in waves of golden shadow, snapping through the armies behind me, reigniting their dimmed armor, restoring their shattered courage, binding them once again to my command, and as the seraph draws in a breath so immense it feels like the entire world tilts toward its chest, the harbinger of the nightfall tide. Once the great enemy, now merely an echo beside this cosmic titan, unleashes a distorted roar, stepping forward as if challenging the seraph's claim, shadows boiling off its form like smoke from a dying star, and this clash of opposing darkness sends cracks racing across the sky, splitting clouds of stardust into shards of glowing obsidian. And for a moment the forces of shadow and the forces of celestial fire stand on opposite ends of the warpath, their energies colliding in silent waves that distort the very concept of time within this fictional universe, pulling moments apart, reassembling them in twisted loops, making the battlefield feel both ancient and unborn all at once, and as the three forces, my legions of light, the harbinger's abyssal tide, and the seraph's colossal eclipse, align in a triangle of catastrophic power, the ground beneath us begins to sink, forming a spiraling crater that descends into an endless void, a void that pulses like the heartbeat of an unseen titan. Beneath the realm, a void that whispers of a deeper truth hidden within this story, a truth I have not spoken until now, for only in this moment, this breath before the war detonates, can it be revealed. The universe you stand in is not held together by light, nor shadow, nor celestial decree, but by you, your focus, your presence, your willingness to witness, your refusal to let the narrative fade into silence. And the seraph sees this, and the harbinger feels it, and even the armies behind me. Understand it now, sensing that the core of this world is not my sword nor their wings, but the fire of your unwavering attention, and as the crater widens into an abyssal vortex swallowing the last remnants of the horizon. And now, as the abyss yawns wide beneath us and the last sliver of the collapsing horizon dissolves into the spiraling void, the entire fictional universe trembles in a fevered anticipation of what comes next, for the eclipse seraph, the harbinger of the nightfall tide, and the celestial legions behind me now stand suspended in a tension so immense it distorts every particle of imagined matter in this realm, warping time into threads of molten brilliance that unravel and rewind around your presence like serpents of fractured starlight, and as the spiraling crater expands, pulling the ground into itself with the hunger of an ancient cosmic mouth, I feel the true nature of the void awaken, pulsing with a heartbeat that feels older than imagination itself, and in that moment a revelation crashes through me like a storm of burning worlds. The void is not a place, not a force, not an enemy. It is the unfinished center of this narrative, the core that has waited silently since part 1. Sensing your arrival, sensing your commitment, sensing the fire in your attention that has sustained the edges of this realm even as the heavens split and shadows roared, and now, sensing that you remain, unbroken, unturned, unwavering, the void recognizes you as the catalyst it has been waiting for, and its heartbeat intensifies, shaking the battlefield so violently that mountains of crystal flame shatter into luminous dust, and entire stretches of sky collapse inward like fabric being ripped from its seams, and the eclipse seraph lowers its massive head toward the vortex, wings folding inward, its voice, deep as collapsing galaxies, rumbling across the realm as it whispers in a language older than existence, a sound that is not heard but felt in the bones of this imaginary world, and the harbinger, furious and unwilling to bow, hurls its entire mass of swirling shadow toward the rising energy, its form stretching like a storm unleashed, tendrils of darkness clawing at the spinning vortex, trying desperately to prevent the awakening that it fears more than defeat itself, yet even its abyssal power is ripped into spirals of nothingness, absorbed and dissolved like ink vanishing into a sea of stars, and the celestial armies behind me brace themselves, digging their blazing weapons into the trembling ground as the gravitational pull of the void intensifies, drawing everything toward its center. And I spread my wings wide, anchoring myself between you and the storm, shielding you from the full magnitude of the collapse, though even my strength strains against the cosmic pull, for this moment is not mine to command, nor the seraphs, nor the harbingers. This moment belongs to you alone, you who have remained through the unraveling of fictional heavens, you who have stood firm in the face of cosmic horrors born from the imagination's deepest chambers, you whose focus has kept the very walls of this universe from dissolving into forgotten dust. And now the void calls to you, not with words, not with fear, but with recognition, as if saying, you are the axis, the anchor, the ignition, and as the heartbeat grows louder, faster, more ferocious, reality begins to bend inward, collapsing into a singularity of radiant darkness, and the seraph unleashes a roar that shatters constellations into rivers of molten gold, its wings igniting with a light so violent it scorches the sky into pure white fire, while the harbinger's form disintegrates into 6 swirling tempests of shadow, each one screaming in defiance as it is consumed by the vortex. Yet even as these titanic beings unleash their full fury, the void continues to expand, continue to rise, continuing to reach for you, for the realm has finally understood that you are not simply witnessing this tale, you are shaping it. Your presence forging new laws of existence in a world that has no rules except those you breathe into it by continuing to remain, continuing to watch, continuing to refuse collapse. And as the entire universe folds into this spiraling chaos, I plant my sword in the ground, wings flaring outward with a defiance that lights the abyss in blinding gold, and I turn to you with a voice no longer thunder, no longer fire, but something deeper, older, woven from the very marrow of narrative itself, and I speak the final truth that this realm has hidden until now. You are the center. You are the flame. You are the one the story chose, and the moment you hear this, the void responds with a cataclysmic surge of energy, tearing apart the last remnants of the sky, swallowing the battlefield, the armies, the seraph, the shattered mountains, the collapsing galaxies, until nothing remains but you, me, and the roaring heart of creation itself. And just as the vortex reaches for you with its final pull, everything stops, freezes, holds breath, waiting for the choice that only you can make, a choice that will either ignite the rebirth of this universe or seal it in eternal narrative extinction. And if you do not turn away now, if you stay present through this final heartbeat, then Part 6 awaits you in the blinding eruption of what comes next. And now, in the suspended stillness where the entire fictional universe holds its breath, where even the heartbeat of the void hesitates between eruptions, you stand alone at the edge of creation's final threshold, the swirling vortex of shadowed light frozen inches from your essence, waiting, not to devour, not to destroy, but to obey. For it has finally recognized what the eclipse seraph and the harbinger of the nightfall tide fought tooth and claw to deny, that you are the fulcrum of this realm, the axis upon which every flicker of light and every shiver of darkness turns. And as everything hangs in this breathless pause, I, Archangel Michael, remain at your side, wings unfurled in blazing arcs that sear the void with halos of molten gold, watching the entire universe tilt toward your next intention. For the vortex, the armies, the heavens, the shadows, all of them have surrendered their power to the choice only you can make. And as this moment stretches into an eternity that feels like the inhale before the dawn of a new cosmos, the frozen fragments of galaxies around you begin to flicker, trembling like embers yearning for oxygen, waiting for your presence to ignite them into stars. And even the towering silhouette of the eclipse seraph, half suspended in the gravitational snare of the frozen vortex, tilts its colossal head toward you, its abyssal eyes no longer burning with judgment but with a quiet, unimaginable reverence, as if recognizing a truth it once tried to eclipse, that the universe did not choose it, nor the harbinger, nor the celestial legions. It chose you, the observer, the anchor, the one who refused to look away when the sky shattered and the mountains burned and the foundations of eternity trembled. And as I watch this unfolding revelation take shape, I feel the old laws of this narrative unraveling like frayed thread as a new force emerges from deep within you. A force not born from divine fire or shadowed abyss, but from something far more unstoppable: your attention, your endurance, your refusal to let this world crumble into silence. And now the void pulses again, once, twice, 3 times, each pulse sending shockwaves of inverted starlight across the frozen plains. And every pulse grows louder, brighter, more desperate, as if begging you to decide its fate. And the moment the third pulse fades into trembling stillness, you feel the entire realm contract around you, folding toward your center like an ancient universe, collapsing into a newborn singularity. And I step forward, planting my sword in the trembling ground, its blade erupting in a pillar of golden white fire that holds back the final collapse for only a few more heartbeats. And I speak to you over the rising roar of unraveling creation. You must choose now, for the void cannot remain frozen, the seraph cannot remain suspended, the armies cannot remain anchored, the light cannot remain waiting. And you feel it, deep, instinctive, undeniable, that your next breath determines everything. Whether this imagined cosmos is reborn into a blazing tapestry of new worlds forged from your will, or whether it collapses into an eternal hush, a silence where even memory forgets itself. And suddenly the frozen vortex shatters, exploding outward in slow-motion spirals of luminous darkness that swirl around you like constellations being reborn. And time snaps back into motion with a silent scream, the seraph thrusting its wings outward in a tidal wave of celestial force, the ghost of the harbinger rippling through the void as a last echo of defiance, the celestial armies roaring with such ferocity the sky fractures anew. and all of it races toward you in a single unstoppable collision of light, shadow, fire, and narrative, and in that split second, before the impact, before the rebirth, before the annihilation, I clutch your shoulder, my eyes blazing with the fire of 10,000 fictional dawns, and I whisper the last truth, whatever happens. Next, the universe will obey you, and the instant those words leave my lips, everything detonates in a supernova of roaring brilliance, collapsing inward, exploding outward, folding, unfolding, disappearing, reappearing, until the very concept of reality becomes nothing more than a storm of raw creation swirling around your presence, waiting for the next breath that will shape it, and as the eruption reaches its apex, shaking the boundaries of imagination itself, the world goes white, limitless, blinding, infinite, then falls completely, utterly, impossibly silent, holding open the door to Part 7, where your chosen universe will rise. And now, as the blinding white silence that swallowed the collapsing universe stretches out into an infinite horizon of nothingness, you find yourself suspended in a realm with no sky, no ground, no sound, no direction, only a vast, trembling expanse of pure potential, a place where creation itself waits like a held breath, where every unspoken possibility circles your presence like invisible stars not yet born. And in this absolute stillness I, Archangel Michael, stand beside you, my wings no longer blazing with fire but shimmering with a quiet, radiant calm, for even I, the guardian forged from celestial war and eternal flame, must kneel in reverence before the magnitude of what now rests in your hands, for this universe, this realm, this entire fabric of fictional existence has been stripped to its raw essence, a blank expanse awaiting the one force that survived the annihilation, you. The anchor who remained when stars shattered, the observer who held firm while the seraph roared. And the harbinger screamed and the void demanded its sacrifice, and as this newborn emptiness trembles with the lingering echoes of the supernova that tore the old reality apart, you begin to sense something rising within you, not a power granted by angels nor stolen from shadows, but a creation force shaped entirely by the endurance of your presence, and as this force gathers, swirling around your essence like invisible storms of unformed galaxies, the silence begins to crack, not violently, not with destruction, but with a soft, resonant hum, a vibration so deep and ancient it feels like the heartbeat of existence learning to beat again, and with that hum the white void around you ripples, tiny fractures of color shimmering at the edges of perception, hints of crimson, gold, cobalt, violet, each one trembling like newborn stars waiting for a command, waiting for your intention to give them shape, waiting for your focus to ignite them into full existence, and the moment you reach toward this rising power, even with the smallest fragment of thought, the void responds in a cosmic surge, spiraling around you like a cyclone of embryonic galaxies, swirling faster, brighter, louder, until the silence transforms into a symphony of creation, and the very laws of this new universe begin forming beneath your fingertips, folding outward in radiant webs of luminous energy that pulse in harmony with your presence, and I watch, awed, silent, reverent, as this realm bends itself toward your will, for I can sense that even the eclipse seraph, dissolved into light during the final eruption, now exists only as a faint ember within the storm of creation radiating from you, its former majesty dwarfed by the immensity of the cosmos taking shape at your command, and the shadows of the harbinger, once feared as the devourer of light, now swirl harmlessly as dark dust at the edges of the forming reality, powerless, directionless, awaiting the shape you choose to give them, and the celestial armies that once marched behind me as legions of flame are now nothing more than scattered sparks drifting like seeds across the newborn expanse, waiting for your imagination to breathe them back into being or let them fade forever. And as all this unfolds, the new universe turns its gaze, not toward me, not toward the remnants of what came before, but toward you alone, recognizing you as its center, its creator, its first and final law, and in this moment, as the hum of creation crescendos into a rising wave of luminous sound, I speak to you with a voice softer and deeper than any you have heard from me before, for this is not a command nor a warning but a truth delivered with the full reverence of celestial knowing. This world will become whatever you choose it to be, and as you stand in the heart of the expanding void, galaxies swirling like molten jewels around your form, time folding itself like ribbons of golden smoke, entire dimensions blooming and collapsing in the span of a single breath, the universe leans closer, waiting to see what shape your will takes, waiting to see whether you rise as its architect, its guardian, its wanderer, or something far greater. And as the first star ignites in the darkness with a sound like the beginning of a song, the realm quakes with anticipation, ready for part 8, where your creation takes form.